Monday, May 6, 2013. I understand we might have a motion to put an addition on the agenda.
Yes, Mayor, we put on the Arts Council asked that the town block on Island Street from Main Street to Church Street from 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. Friday, May the 31st, 2013, for a vintage rock concert, street dance, prelude to the Memorial Day weekend.
Okay.
Program opens at 7. This council is
That's enough for the motion. Of course, we'll put Roman in front of them later, right? Is there a second to the motion? Any discussion? All in favor, raise your hand. We'll add that down there with number 3 with the other street closing request. All right, we got the next minutes, April 1st, 13th, and 23rd. Looks like we were busy. Any motion, any adjustments, corrections on those minutes?
We'll make a motion to read first.
Got a motion second. Any discussion? All in favor, raise your hand. Passes without objection. Public session. This is designed to come and just speak briefly. We're really not at the public session level able to take any action on anything which is brought up tonight. It's more just to get our attention on something, and really there's not a lot of back and forth at the public session. That's more for agenda items. But I got here a list of things. Brian Parker. Brian, come on up, sir. If you don't mind, stand over there to the podium and just tell us who you are, where you live, and what's your issue.
My name is Brian Parker. I live in Otto, but I have property here in town. And the thing I'm trying to bring before the board, I have rental trailers. They're not, eyesores. They're very nice trailers inside and out. They look good inside and out. I've got an ex-trailer that was on Gaston Street. I just got done putting $5,000 in this trailer. It's nice on the inside, it's nice on the outside. I'm still in the process of putting money into it. I rented it to a guy, the man, he worked at McDonald's. The girl, she had busted biscuit or something. I was, went out on a limb and let them move in there. They burned it to the ground. Burned it flat down there for 3 months after I just got done putting $5,000. Now, town of Franklin has an ordinance that you cannot move a trailer into the city limits. I'm not arguing with that at all. However, what I'm trying to bring forward board is, like, if you have a mobile home in town and through no fault of your own and somebody burns your trailer down, why you can't move another nice trailer in to replace it? I mean, if I actually lived there and I owned a piece of property in town that had sewer and water, I was paying taxes on it, and for some reason it burned down, then I would have to move because I can't afford to put a mortgage home or build a home on it, especially renting it out to somebody. But I would like to put a nice mobile home back in its place, but, for the town company, I'm not allowed to do so.
Have you spoken with, who have you spoken with?
Well, I spoke to Warren, and I spoke to Derek. And Derek wanted me to see if I could get it rezoned, get this and get it rezoned. Up on Gaston Street, 99% of the places on Gaston Street and Lyle Street and in that area is mobile homes. There's not a lot of houses, most of it's a mobile home area. And like I say, you can go in any of my mobile homes, they're all nice. I mean, I spend a lot of money on my mobile homes.
It certainly cannot be an issue, Mr. Parker, of whether your particular home is nice or whatever. I will what I can tell you that could possibly be meaningful is that we're finding needs to adjust as time goes on the Uniform Development Ordinance and the overall blanket zoning that we enacted a few years ago. There are pockets which deserve review. You're suggesting this is one of the pockets.
I mean, I'm not asking you to change it where you say, okay, you got this property with no water, no sewer. These people want to put a mobile home in there. We're going to let them do that. I'm not asking you to do that. I'm asking you to look at it where somebody had a mobile home and for some reason, no fault of their own, something happened, they got destroyed. Let them replace that mobile home.
Okay,
That's
all right.
what I'm asking.
Thank you, sir. Jerry Hermanson.
Good evening. I'm Jerry Hermanson with the Community Care Clinic of Franklin. I'm here in my capacity. Last time I spoke with you, I was here as the Executive Director of the Highlands Clinic, but I'm on the Board of Directors of the local clinic now, and I'm the Treasurer, and I want to give you an update on the clinic and ask for your support. As you probably all know, the clinic started about 3 years ago. It was started as an expansion of the Highlands Clinic through a grant from the state of North Carolina. And during that 3-year period, the clinic sought to separate from the Highlands Clinic and stand on its own. They incorporated as a nonprofit, and I'm happy to say, after over a year's worth of effort, the IRS gave us a letter last Friday saying we are now approved as a charitable organization under 501c3. It's all the way retroactive to September of 2011. So they found the first application, they said they lost. Anyway, the clinic has been in operation for the last 3 years and has done a significant amount of work for the people and citizens in Franklin. I think you all got some handouts. I'm not going to go through those handouts to make it quicker, but last year alone we saw 854 different patients for a total of 1,694 patient visits. During the last 3 years of operation, we have seen 1,727 different patients. We call unduplicated patients for a total of 4,492 patient visits. It's clear that the clinic has been successful and is needed because of those types of volumes. Our patients have no health insurance and are at or below 150% of federal poverty guidelines. That's a family income level. And that's how they're eligible for services to the clinic. About 80% of our patients are working, usually part-time, but some of them are working full-time in very low-paying jobs. It's really the working poor of the community. Of those patients, 94% are from Franklin. So it's really a local clinic. About 60% of those patients come to us with episodic illnesses like allergies and sore backs and muscles from working, things like that. About 40% are chronically ill patients with diabetes, high blood pressure, thyroid problems. So it's a combination of the two. We look at the value of the clinic, and that's an important aspect in looking at any nonprofit. What's the value? What is the community getting from this? In the handouts, there should be a copy of the proposed budget for this year, and it shows that the total cost of operation is estimated at $137,000. There's a page that explains some of the higher or larger costs in there, and that's our personnel costs, our payroll costs. We have 5 part-time staff. We have no full-time employees, but 5 part-time staff members, including a nurse practitioner and a physician's assistant. We have these people to make sure that they're there every day during the week to make sure that patients can ask questions, can answer questions, make sure they get to the right place, and so we need that for continuity. But we primarily work on a volunteer basis. Last year we had 55 individuals that volunteered at the clinic. 6 of those were medical providers, 22 were clinical volunteers, 22 more were administrative and clerical volunteers, and we had 5 translators. When we look at the cost and the value of the clinic, we do a calculation every year. This last year, we looked at the cost if we had charged patients, the cost of the medical services, the cost of the medications that they get for free through the clinic, and the cost of free laboratory and other testing that they get. Last year, that total was $639,600. That's about $5 for every dollar we spend. That's not a bad return on investment. And that's not atypical for most free clinics around the state. So they're getting a good value. But also, one of the things that you have to look at is what is the community getting as a result of this free clinic being in existence. They're getting a healthy workforce. Like we said, 80% plus of those people are working people in our community. They're in the lower paid jobs in our community, but they're very important. And they're getting health care. If you look at one of the handouts that was in there, we asked every patient at every visit, if we weren't here, where would you have gone? We want to know if we're meeting a need. And if you look at that list, 788 of those answers, or 47%, said they wouldn't have sought treatment. Now, some of those people would get better without treatment. Some of them would get worse and end up probably in a higher level like an emergency room. but 660 of those patients, or about 40%, said they would have gone to the Angel Emergency Room. That's not the right place to go. Particularly those with chronic illnesses, they need to be seen by a doctor on an ongoing basis, and that's what the clinic's doing. So we're really making a huge impact in the healthcare of the community. Looking to the patients, or to the clinic's future, this year, as of January 1, the clinic is separated from the Highlands Clinic. The Highlands Clinic, because they were concerned and wanted this clinic to succeed, has agreed to pay the expenses of operation for the first 6 months, or through June 30th of this year. The local board, which is made up of 10 individuals, are working to do fundraising locally. They're looking for support in fundraising efforts on a wide basis. Any clinic to be successful has to have a broad base of support. It has to have individuals, it has to have churches, it has to have local foundations and businesses to make sure it succeeds in the long run. But right now, what we need is local support from the local governments. Macon County government has put in their proposed budget a line item to support the clinic while they try to get their fundraising off the ground, and I'm hoping that the town of Franklin will consider the same thing. If you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer. Thank you.
Janet Curtis? Jan, I don't know you as Janet. Oh,
My name is Janet Curtis, and I am here tonight speaking on behalf of my father, Ty Kinsman, who owns the commercial property at the Down Hill. His property consists of the metal building where the Franklin LoRes is located in 2 brick garage buildings. It is our understanding that we now have a zoning problem because his former renter allowed his business license to lapse. So we are here tonight to ask the board to help us find a workable solution. I'm sure I don't have to tell you that in these economic times, we have had problems finding good renters. Several have come and gone for various reasons, but now we believe we have found one who is willing and able to run a good mechanic shop, help us take care of the property, and hopefully be an asset to the town. However, when he applied for a business license was when we found out that there is a problem. My father built the shops in the 1970s and ran them for over 20 years. Furman Shook, well known in this town, and a former Franklin fireman, operated from there many years after that. But since Furman's retirement, it has been a struggle finding someone with enough clientele to make a go at the business and who will maintain the property in the way we expect. Obviously, with 2 large garage doors, the best and really only use of the building is for an automotive shop. The entire property is for sale, but until we have a buyer, we need to be able to rent it as a garage in order to continue the necessary maintenance, pay the taxes, and provide my father with some retirement income from his years of investments. I hope you've noticed the new paint on the metal building. We want to continue to improve the property. We want to be good commercial citizens of Franklin and be an asset to the community. So I'm asking the board for your help. How can we solve this problem? A vacant building on Main Street doesn't make a good impression for the town and doesn't help the economy. So what can we do to work out this problem? I appreciate your listening.
thank you. Dan,
Yes.
really, you heard what I talked to Mr. Parker about, that we have found at times reasons to look at our zoning once it's on the ground and we're seeing real effects. We have not only your 2 sections that you brought up tonight, is other sections that board members and myself have promised to look at to see if it makes sense. But I think that you can be sure that the board will give good attention to both of you all. Not necessarily absolutely going to agree right now that it's going to change a lot, but we can give it good attention and give you all a response.
Appreciate that very much.
Dr. Lucy's Meadows Smart.
My name is Lucy Meadows Smart, and I live out on Green Street, 333 Green Street. And I have lived there for over 50 years, or my parents lived there since 1957. And I thank you for letting me have time now to talk to you about a real concern that I have about what's happening on Green Street. Green Street has really gone down through the years. When we first moved there, it was just, it was a pleasant place, but it has gone down, downhill. There's a lot of drugs on the street. There's the church, for the last 2.5 years, the church down there on Green Street has been trying to do something like a homeless shelter. And they've had homeless people inside the church and outside the church. And it's created lots and lots of problems on the street. In fact, since I've been with my father for 4.5 years, day in and day out, until he died. And I sometimes would get up in the night and sit at the window, and it was like Grand Central Station, people going up and down the street, stopping up and down the street. They were drunk or drugged up or some problem, I don't know what all. I have talked to the police chief about this. I've talked to different police officers about it. Green Street needs to be cleaned up. But my concern tonight is that I don't want a homeless shelter on Green Street. Green Street has had enough. We need to put a homeless shelter in Franklin. A homeless shelter is needed. There are going to be more and more homeless people in the future if our economy keeps going the way it's going. And so I think we need a homeless shelter, but we don't need it on Green Street. There's not any place down on Green Street that is compatible to what a homeless shelter should be. It should have certain regulations, rules. It should have a profile of the people that are coming in and going out. We don't even know who some of those people are. I know for a fact that there was a pedophile down there. I know for a fact that there were children down there. I know for a fact that there are sex acts going on around the church. Now, it's bad. You need to check on it. Now, what I'm saying, it needs to have regulations and standards set up. You need to have that controlled by someone, by the town. If it's in the town, then the town needs to have some control over it. There are permits for just about everything else. There needs to be a permit for a homeless shelter. I've got some buildings up behind my house. I don't think that it would be right for me to set up a homeless shelter up there and let people sleep on the floor. And there's just barely water enough for one person, and no commodes, or one commode that's not half working. Okay, I'm saying, let's look at this, because for one thing, you're, as a town board, you are somewhat responsible for that. If there should be a murder, or rape, or molestation, a fight where there's serious injury, you could be sued, really in a big suit, because this can happen. Because there are all kinds of people down there, and there's really no control over it. Shannon, the preacher, is trying to do some good. I appreciate what he's doing, but he can't do it. It has to be under a controlled kind of situation, and one that's, and I've been in school business for 32 years, you've got to have standards, rules, regulations, and have people to come in and do it the right way. And I think it would be, the integrity of this board is really at jeopardy. You need to come forward and really do something about this, and maybe even set up a model for other counties to come and see what you've done. These people do need help. It is really a shame and a disgrace for what you see out there. We need some counselors. We need some help for those people. They need a place for recreation. They have no place for recreation. Their recreation is going up and down the street and creating prime problems. And I really hope that you will look at that and see if something can be done about that situation. I hope to live in my father's house for the rest of my life, and I would like the street to be one that I'm proud of. And thank you. Thank you.
Dan?
I shouldn't have to come here every month and beg you all to do your job, but I'll beg you one more time to do it, because I can't do it. It's a real shame. I work for the Dade County School Board, and I would go out to the schools and they get the janitors based on how big the school was, so everybody had to ride around with maintenance people and janitors out there. And you go out to some schools and they're just dirty and they're run down and they're broken, and it seems like the people that should be maintained, that all they do is sit in the chairs and they're waiting on their retirement. They don't care, they never do nothing, nothing gets fixed, nothing gets done. You go out to some schools and they're just absolutely positively beautiful. Same amount of people. And my favorite school was Monmouth Beach High. There was a little Jewish guy about 5 feet tall. He reminded me of Earl Draymond. And the guy he would go wide open every minute. You couldn't keep up with the guy. And if he had a broken window, he was on the phone. He wanted it repaired today. If something wasn't perfect, the guy couldn't sleep at night. That's the way it should be. And I see the town of Franklin. I know you got plenty of employees. You got 75 of them. And I never see nothing get done. I see these guys ride around the trucks. The only work they ever did was the time they were holding the shovels up. There were 15 of them holding shovels up all day long. And for the amount of people you got, and the amount of trucks you got, and the amount of equipment you got, it's like those guys that sit in those chairs all day. They don't care. The schools are run down. They're dirty. They're filthy. And I would say to the school board, I say, why can't we get rid of these people? Get people to want to work. Get people to get the job done. You go somewhere like Disney World, and people drop some popcorn on the sidewalk. Give it 5 minutes. Then it disappears. Somebody on camera would see that. There'll be 2 people out there. Instant. It's done. You ought to see the landscaping they do, all the beautiful work they do there. Those people care. They're on top of things. If you got maintenance people, it seems like I've been looking at the same crap for 10 years. You go all around my neighborhood, there's all that piled up wood. You all got a chipper, you got trucks, you got guys, you got chainsaws. Tell me in 10 years they couldn't clean up in the neighborhood. Nobody has done nothing in 10 years. I've been trying for 10 years. And there's no reason. I mean, I think the guy with a chipper and a truck and a couple of chainsaws, I think 2 guys in a couple hours could have cleaned it up. It don't take 10 years. I've been driving over the same pothole on Dogwood Drive for 10 years. I've been crying about that for 10 years. I know y'all know about it because I see the cops up and down Dogwood Drive. I see the maintenance trucks up and down Dogwood Drive. They drive over the same pothole I drive over, and right in front of Mr. Ritter's house. And I'm sure they look out the window, they see all that crap along the road, all that wood along the road, the garbage along the road. I mean, all they did is look out the window. I'm sure somebody would have noticed by now. Why can't you get, if these people don't want to work, why don't you find people who do want to work?
All right, thank you, Dan. All right, that takes care of this. Pass this down to Janet, please. New business, Warren, you're going to present the proposed 2013-2014 budget.
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor. Summer's going to actually pass out the copies, so I talked to you very briefly about it. Obviously tonight you're going to be presented with the proposed 2013-14 budget. And got some of the highlights of it tonight that I'll go over very briefly. The revenues for this year are basically flat, for lack of a better term, and that's basically what we predicted next year. However, due to the diligence of our staff and the other work that's put into this, we have managed to craft the budget to maintain the same tax rates this year at 25 cents per hundred. A couple of capital improvement projects that are listed on there. One of the other things that I'd like to remind the board of is that during last year's budget process, you initiated a 2-year rate increase for your sewer rates to be spread over a period of 2 years. So included in this proposal, you will also find the inclusion of that rate increase. In the back of your packet, there is a synopsis of what those rates, what the changes would actually be if you budget. So the pass is budget the way it is. And that's what the outcome would be to your average customer, what that would mean to them. So basically, I'd like to present this tonight to your consideration. One of the things that I would like to publicly state is that this, obviously, my first budget year here, we changed a few ways that we did our budgeting process. We put a little more emphasis on our department heads and our staff. We did essentially a modified zero-based budgeting where they had to line item justify every item that they requested. They performed very well. Through the diligence of those folks, I think we have a very healthy and very productive budget for you to look over. And I also like to extend my appreciation to Jan. Jan's been very patient in this process to me to work through this. I'd like to bring that to your consideration.
So presented, thank you for your work, everybody. This was a good start. I see on the back you do have some average usages here. Okay, so we want to consider setting up budget work session.
Mayor, I think you also need to entertain a motion to acknowledge it as received.
All right, someone want to make that motion?
Make the motion to acknowledge receipt of the proposed budget.
Second. Any discussion? All in favor, raise your hand. Thank you, John, for reminding me of that. All right, 4B, consideration for budget work session for 1 week from tomorrow, Tuesday, May 14th at 5:30. Make that better now? Got a motion, sis? There's got a second, all in favor, raise your hand. Yeah. So we're going to tentatively put public hearing for the budget for Monday, June 3rd, 2013, 7:05 p.m. Is there a motion to that effect?
Make the motion.
Second. All in favor, raise your hand. Adams wants some Bushmasters. Yeah, what's this about? Chief Adams, talk to me. You just been to Houston? Good evening.
We plan on using money from the drug seizure money from North Carolina, like the drug tax. LoRes, we seize drugs and the money. This is money to come back and purchase 8 rifles, replace some of our shotguns. We're getting a heck of a deal from this Amchar, I believe it is. Normally it's about a $1,200 rifle. We're getting for $400 a piece.
Why does anybody get it done cheap these days?
But it's a law enforcement. We want to purchase 8 of them to replace our shotguns.
You feel like it's a normal situation of keeping your equipment up more?
Yes, and keeping us ahead of the potential suspects these days.
Janet, you got money to do it?
Well, that money comes into like a little separate fund, so we got it in the budget at a fund balance, but he has that money.
I thought that went to our bonuses for the.
Well, we figured that, we might go to jail. It's like a little special fund, and we have to amend it up, so you can't use it to balance the work.
There's a state and federal, is that right, Jen?
Yeah, they do some come out.
It's state.
Those will be out of state funds.
I make a motion that we request the funds over for the purchase of 8 rifles, the chief requested.
Billy's got a second. Any discussion? All in favor, raise your hand. Thank you. The ammunition's on your own.
It's on back order since January. So.
Just have to throw the rifles out.
That's right. Club somebody in the head with it. All right. Linda, Case of Scotland. Then we're going to get Tino's request as well. Louis Slogan, Main Street Executive Director.
I came to you in January and requested the street closings for the events that the Main Street program does. And at that time, we didn't have a Taste of Scotland scheduled for this year. And now we do, which is the paperwork. They have their insurance. Now they're asking for Iola and Phillip Streets to be closed Friday on June the 14th at 5:30 to Saturday, June the 15th at 9 o'clock. That's a little bit different than what we've normally done. But they had asked the stores to be open, and the stores, most of the stores have agreed to be open later. I think today, that's Saturday.
Do you believe that it fits their needs, makes sense for this extra time being closed?
I don't know, we've never done it before, so it makes it, it's just different. It's hard to carry a festival from 9 o'clock in the morning till 8 o'clock at night, but they want to try it, so we're up for that. It's just gonna take some more, like Gerald would have to work in the closest. We have to take the tables and chairs down later.
What's the date?
It's the 14th Friday the 14th at 5:30 till Saturday, June 15th. And that's till 9 o'clock, and that's it. They've told all the vendors, all their craft vendors, all their food vendors that,
Main Street stays open.
Main Street stays open.
Just
Just
for
not
two
open.
That motion, Sissy makes a motion that we allow that request.
Second.
We have discussion. All in favor, raise your hand. Any opposed? Bobby Cantino wants to close the north side, looks like, 6 till 10 o'clock Friday, May 31st, we have some outdoor dance. Playing old music.
Some outdoor dance or something.
That's right. And it's from the Arts Council. Comes endorsement, this is, hard to turn down a good evening out in the town, the street dancing.
The program opens at 7 with the council's award-winning Z-Square and Company.
Good work with it.
Keyboardist Lionel King, vocals by Mike Catino and Friends, playing 1950s to 70s era pop and Motown favorites, and including a set of patriotic music in honor of veterans. It's a free, family-friendly event open to everyone.
What award you win?
C-Square Band won the North Carolina State Award for service to persons with development disabilities. We go to the handicap center every week and do a sock hop. And we're very proud of that.
Yes.
And we enjoy it tremendously.
What street is this?
Church, this is church,
Just church.
Iowa from Maine to church.
Okay.
Same,
Okay, same.
same.
And thank you for taking this at the last minute. Linda not only sent me the forms in plenty of time, but she phoned me a couple weeks ago and reminded me, and they were buried on my desk, and I'm sorry for coming in at the last minute. It's through no fault.
Just for you, Ron.
How was that motion? Motion approved. Got a second, any discussion? All in favor, raise your hand.
Wear your dancing shoes,
Now
and
let us in free.
Mayor Collins, you may wear your Elvis suit.
Appointment of Leland and Risk with the E, I don't know how that's pronounced. To fill vacancy on TD to A. Someone what's got?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Leland Risk is with Signs Express, and he would be filling the vacancy that was previously held by Deb Heatherly with Deb's Cats and Quilts. He would fill for a tourist-related business, and we're asking for a 2-year appointment.
Is that recommendation?
Yes, sir.
So you got competition.
Getting one or one. I make a motion that we approve it.
Discussion by the board. All in favor, raise your hand. Appointment of John Strait to fill TDA, summer, similar.
Yes, sir. He would be representing Mulligan's Bar and Grill, and it would also be for a 2-year appointment.
This is a recommendation,
Yes, sir.
discussion by the board. electronic public notice bill.
Well, as y'all know, the legislature is, once again, seems like they're pushing things down on the county and governments. And one of the bills that's there right now is that local governments in 5 western North Carolina counties, along with a couple other counties down the state, can opt out of publishing legal notices in the newspapers of record. The North Carolina Press Association, ACLU, several organizations are in opposition to this because they said that local governments can publish the legal notices online. Now, we have the option, the bill gives the option of doing both, or opting out. And the whole reason is they say they can save the towns and the counties a lot of money. And I think we've spent only something like about $1,500 on legal notices. But here's the situation. That a lot of people don't have internet service. And I doubt seriously if everybody rushes every day to check the town's website. So I make a motion that we continue, as we have, to publish legal notices in the newspaper of record of the county. And we can also publish it on the website if the board wants to pass that with our IT.
We have a motion. Is there a second to that motion?
I second it.
Now, is there a discussion?
This bill hasn't passed. Don't pass yet.
I would prefer that that's the passage and see what the final bill is.
Is it premature?
Where is it? Where is it?
I'm not sure where it
It
is.
was around the Senate, the last I saw, and it has got to the House.
It was introduced in the Senate. The interesting thing about it is the original bill had a couple of counties down east, and then our senator has added 5 to the counties in his district. And we're on
But it's probably not right. It's probably not the issue yet because we're still required to publish in newspapers.
So we have to agree on that.
Well, I think until such time as there's other options, and then we want to decide our options, it wouldn't be, I don't think that, John, jump in here, what do you think?
I mean, the motion is essentially to continue doing what you're legally required to do now anyway, so I can't see any harm in considering it passing it if the board wants to. I don't know.
But we could not pass it.
Right.
We don't have any options right now.
I don't know that you wouldn't have to re-examine the matter again after that bill passed.
It's all of it used to at one time.
But you have to vote out, I mean, if we're doing what we're supposed to do now.
No, we can't, it's not voting, that's just a requirement.
I think that one thing we'd be doing is sending a message that we don't particularly agree with. And maybe we do, maybe the board does agree with it. But,
Well,
to me,
would you want to make your motion, bring your motion, that we send a motion in opposition to that bill?
I think we basically did that a couple of years ago when we went in opposition against not publishing notices, legal notices. Well, it was a couple of years ago, yeah.
Yeah, but this is the new bill.
Bob, I think Billy's right. I think Billy's right until such time as they pass it, if they do. It's not an issue that the board that can take the action on.
Well, I think that the victim here is the public's right to know.
No, I'm thinking it's your victim. I mean, if it passes, you're right, if it passes, it could be, but we don't know what form that bill's gonna be. Right now, we can't vote on something, we don't even know the form of it yet. If it passes, we'll have a bill.
The bill has been written.
It has, but it goes to committee and it goes back to crossover or whatever, but, I think you put us well taken, but I believe that procedurally, personally, I agree with Billy, I think it's the vote. Yeah, board, jump in here, John, somebody help me.
Well, it makes sense in some ways, so they didn't think about it. If it hasn't passed, then we kind of get resident in for full disclosure on that. But we'll have to wait until it comes in front of us, I guess.
Well,
Where was that?
Well, if the state passes it, aren't we obligated to follow that? Then we get to decide we're not gonna follow.
No, the state presumably gives you options.
Oh, okay.
And then, yeah, right.
And John can correct me if I'm wrong, but if it does pass, I believe you'll have to pass a resolution saying that this is what you're gonna do. Then you have to publish a notice in the newspaper once a month for 12 months, notifying the public how you're
Oh, the paper make more money off that.
So if
We're
we
gonna
did
be
it ahead
fine
of time, we still have to.
Bob, I think tonight the point's well taken that you would give.
I think that what's happening in Raleigh right now is everybody in every municipality better set up and taking water rights away from towns, taking airports away from towns. And right now, I have never seen municipalities in as precarious a position as we are in the General Assembly. And I think we need to send this message that we don't agree with.
Now, so do you want to basically amend your motion to that suggest that the board resubmit its disapproval of the bill?
I will amend
Well, first of all, is there a second?
Yes, sir.
This is scary, so just remember this.
So now let's have time to discuss that. I'm comfortable sending them down. I don't have any problem with
If we send it, I mean, what are we doing?
it. We're just voicing, I guess, sending our message to them that we believe that it needs to stay in the general print we give it, than going to online. Once it's broken.
Don't fix it.
But they haven't voted finally on it.
Not sure about that.
They already know we don't like it, but that's
It's a whole new set of people that don't know us since the last time we said something.
Several years. Well, I sense that if the board is leaning towards staying where the way we're at anyway, I don't see a real problem going there and sending another message down. It is some new folks that maybe, that's my opinion, but we have a motion and a second. And do we have any further discussion?
One other thing, I have to give this disclosure. North Carolina League of Municipalities is supporting this bill. It's one of the very rare times I've ever broken with North Carolina League of Municipalities. They've been very supportive.
Any more discussion?
I like her looking at trying to save money. Now advertising.
So, there was a motion, we know the second, we know the issue. All in favor, raise your hand. Opposed? Is that 4-2? Okay. Yeah. All right. We want to talk about insurance blankets.
If y'all will remember, one of the discussions we had whenever we first started looking at our festival event guidelines some time ago, had to do with the liability coverage that we may or may not require organizers to have of events when they come into the town of Franklin and have certain events. And one of the things we started to look at back then was the possibility of a blanket insurance coverage for those folks that come into the town. Now, this is not for the town proper. We're covered. The town of Franklin has its own liability coverage that covers us for our properties or our lease properties and things that would happen where somebody would come back and have an issue with us. This solely has to do with the organizations themselves acquiring and having that liability insurance to cover themselves and possibly naming us as a secondary insurer, naming us on the policy if they were to come in here. At the time when we developed these guidelines, obviously we went by basically the consensus of the rules that we had in place at the time, and at that point we were requiring or suggesting, or we anticipated these folks have $1 million insurance coverage when they came in out of the tent. And that basically mirrors the DOT guidelines. If you go to the North Carolina Department of Transportation and submit this form to ask for a road closure that's a state street or road, they require you to have $1 million. What we have found is that basically there is not a company that will provide that kind of service. We have maybe one other option that we're pursuing, but everybody so far has basically told us no. There was one option that was essentially extremely expensive, way more than we could ever possibly afford to cover. So basically, I think tonight Bob had asked about this, and this is essentially an update to the conversation we had then, that we really don't have a good option to provide that coverage at the moment. There was a couple options we looked at. One of the options that Summer and I discussed, to be very honest with you, was the TDA funding. Perhaps that could be one of the things you come to the TDA and ask for, was for the funds to purchase that insurance. However, the Summer, correct me if I'm wrong, the policy for the TDA is that you have to have insurance in place prior to coming and submitting your application to the TDA to make sure that your organization or your festival actually is organized, and you're not just coming asking for money to see what you can get and then hope a festival falls into place after the fact. The only other solution I have at this point is you either have to keep requiring those folks to provide some sort of proof of insurance, and John will look at you fairly bad as I mentioned this, or the way that this verbiage is on our form, it says that you're required to provide certificate of liability insurance covering the festival event up to $1 million if applicable. You all are the ones that would determine whether it's applicable or not. And I'm sure there would have to be some legal input on what the repercussions would be if you don't require that.
What does our provider say is our liability if there's an event and there is a claim based upon the negligence of the event promoter? I mean,
well, obviously we'll be named.
You know, the only right legal answer is it depends, but we will be named. And I think really and I think Linda participated in this quite a bit, discussion with our insurer, that the line would be drawn pretty much at whether the event is a town hosted event is a government function.
but we have insurance for those.
It's covered by our policy. We still have liability if we have just sort of helped and facilitated because you know how plaintiff's attorneys are, they want to name everybody they can think to name. And just the town having participated in the level of closing a street or helping organize in some way or another is almost certainly no. That's what the insurance company were saying. No, if you're not the organizer, the sponsor of an event, you're not covered.
We're not covered, but we help with it, we would still be liable.
Yes.
If somebody else has a function on Main Street anywhere, and we provide chairs or we provide any kind of help, then we can call that kind of.
Yes.
The reason for the liability insurance is to protect the public, protect the town.
Well, it's kind of both. And the TDA, the TDA has done some work in this direction and found that it is not a real, Warren was talking about the high bar that we would have as a town to get coverage for that. The special events coverage for an organizer of an event like that is not that hard to get. It's not extraordinarily expensive. It's really, that's not a real onerous burden to put on.
It is approved by.
Yeah.
How long has the town been requiring?
I'm not sure I can
Since the Smoky Mountain Road.
Since when?
Didn't it first, where it said it was Smoky
Yes,
Mountain
sir.
Road?
try to keep them out of that.
So that's 2 years.
Oh, no, I think just a year ago.
Because we
Yeah,
had
it was
a
like-
because we had a
So
last year.
what
Well, we have
We
it.
were lucky.
We were lucky.
Let me ask you this.
That's standard, it's standard for liability insurance for anybody. You talk to the ones that run the Macon County Fair out there. Do they have insurance? Oh, yeah, they do, but if someone falls or something. So anybody that has an event has liability insurance. It's not an expensive cost at all.
Well,
And the fact that you haven't been sued yet is not a good reason not to look
No.
at it. This is, you know.
let me tell you kind of where I'm coming from, how I kind of got it wrong. There are a lot of little events that take place on Main Street. And they may have a budget of $250. The liability insurance is $400 to $500 for one little small event. And yet those little small events that they're having mean a whole lot to the economy of the town. So we're in a catch-22.
Give us an example of an organization talking.
The venture local Friday night things, what do they call it? You know what I'm talking about? Street Fest. And the liability insurance that they would have to have for that one thing is more than their whole budget that they budgeted for the event.
So when they get a policy, John, they would cover them for all their events? Usually.
They could
usually
name all the
agencies have
dates,
liability
they
insurance.
could name all the dates they're doing it.
Well, right now, we just had a request for the Arts Council. Are they going to have
Yeah, they're gonna have
liability
to have,
insurance?
are they gonna have to have liability insurance?
Look at all the different things that we have. We had a prayer thing up on Main Street.
What did they do before we did
This is it. We've never really had this issue till the Smoky Mountain Road.
No.
What happened?
Linda, stand up.
Can I say?
Sure.
We've had it for the last couple of years because we've required the Taste of Scotland to have it probably 2 years ago. We required the Folk Festival to have it. So those are the two events that have had it. And then the Smoky Mountain Rumble was a separate sort of. So I'd say for the last 2 years we've had it. Before
But
the
not
Smoky
for
Mountain.
all events.
Not for all events,
Street
no.
Fest.
Yes, we required it for Street Fest. Yes,
Okay.
they had to pay for Street Fest.
But they don't have the money to do it, to buy the insurance for each individual.
Well, let's look at what we continue, that's fresh on our minds.
Yes, and that was one that came when we had the discussion, when Warren and we all met, we talked about what do we do about the smaller nonprofits, and the Arts Council was included in that, because, you know, what kind of budget do they have?
I think the answer is somewhere in the middle. I think that for the bigger events we require it, but I don't think we can require it for something like a street dance. I mean, I think it would just stifle creativity and activity.
I'm certainly not an insurance expert. Summer and I met with our insurance carrier 2 weeks or so ago and went over our policy. We specifically discussed most of these liability issues. And John is correct. There's not an incorrect answer. We have coverage designed to protect us. But no matter what we do, if these folks don't have the coverage and we're not named as a separately insured, traditionally insured for that, there could very well be some liability in town. Now, the only saving grace, we sort of have joked about it, not being sued is not a real reason not to do anything, but there are very few instances where you usually have problems with festivals. There are very few events that culminate in a suit or a filing against an insurance policy on festivals, which you would think would drive the price down. But essentially what we've been told is that for individual festivals, there's basically a minimum handling charge for insurance policy to get it on the paper through the process, and that's pretty much what most of them have, and they're $300 or $500.
Let me ask you this, Warren. We've also had events like the 5K that came through town, and started in town. Did they have a lot? I don't know. It's a real can of worms.
The Vietnam Veterans Parade.
Exactly.
Any small thing?
Christmas tree.
Yeah, Christmas Parade, no, it's
And
not
it's
that.
sponsored by the town and endorsed by the town, and it falls back under our policy.
But yet, we're requiring them, it sounds like we're sort of requiring these policies in order for them to use our streets.
If it's a state street, we don't have an option, and that's between them and DOT. Now, even Iowa Street up there, unfortunately, is a state street.
really then, for those events, again, such as Bobby's dance, she has no option, the DOT technically requires it.
Between her and DOT more figures.
We're sitting there, we talked about the gazebo, and we predicted everything out here. Will she not have to have that down here?
No, I don't know what happens to the right word, whether it makes more sense.
Well, this, what we're talking about, like we're supposed to have in the parking.
Well, I mean, it'd make more sense that, yeah, it would. But then we would still require insurance there. I mean, are we gonna require it? Yeah.
And there may not be any answers tonight, you may have to
There's no good answer.
direct your staff to go back. and
I
look at
really,
some other
I personally think that for the bigger ones, we require it, but I do think it's a good place for a waiver. I really do. Don't you, sis?
What's the definition of big one and small one?
Oh, that's always in the
It's
details.
not for the town, that's not their contributions. But the others don't require them to have, you know, they're gonna get a risk not to have it, but that's their own
Well,
choice.
usually any organization though has a liability policy, but they have a meeting someone falls or something, so most organizations have liability policies.
But it's just, I think it's pretty extra burden. I mean, really, when you think of the cost of whatever.
By the same token, if the Girl Scouts sell cookies up there on the,
They've got liability, they've got liability.
well, they may, I guess, at the national level, but I don't know about the local level.
We can certainly come up with some examples of.
If they organize, they probably know about it.
Ward, let's not let this issue die. Let's try to figure out how to get us some recommendations or what have you, but, we're not gonna make a decision on it tonight, I don't sense that.
Is that the consensus of the board, am I reading you right, that you want to explore a sort of a lower limit floor under which, you know, the organization wouldn't be required to, wants to feel it out with our insurance carrier, I guess?
Oh, the insurance carrier is like, oh.
There
Oh,
is
yeah.
actually more.
Yeah. I would never recommend us not have insurance.
How about if we bring you back with a different option?
Yeah, it's bring it back something.
Does the state require for the road closed?
Yes, it is on the one, it is on
Yeah, it's required, it's always been required.
All right. Let's finish up this section with, under new business, discussion on banners. Bob, is that you?
I guess I have a question. The banner issue has not gone away with, some of the groups downtown. What I don't understand is if property owners allow the banner across Main Street to be affixed to their building, and the banner is made in such a manner that, you know, the wind and all is not gonna pull it down, you know, with the mesh and all like that, why are we still blocking from having a banner across Main Street? Special events.
Well, the two things I've heard is aesthetics and safety. Is that the two things?
Did we not discuss this?
Yes,
We discussed
we
it.
have.
Yeah.
And everybody, of course, agreed?
To some degree,
I don't have a problem with banners, I think banners are great, I just don't want them across the street blocking views and blocking the sun, and causing accidents and injuries and
Well,
stuff.
didn't we at that
They would be
time,
liable.
that time, direct Warren and Jared to find us the other option? And
Let
we
me,
said, we said that if we do not allow the banner on the street, we have to provide.
I don't think it ever got to a formal action. I do agree that at that time, that was a consensus. I felt like.
So we want to have something to offer, if we did.
But let me update, but first, let me give you a little history on the banner thing. Well, the real issue with the banners at the moment is chapter 95 of our ordinances. It has to do with streets and sidewalks, not signage. There is a provision under 95.08 that says that the only way the banners can be placed now is to come to you for approval. And our discussion, essentially, I recommend that you have three options. You can leave it as it is, leave the ordinance untouched, and therefore you leave it open for the fact that there could be a banner, but it has to be individually approved by you. You can go completely one direction and develop a policy and eliminate this ordinance and direct it to your staff, and set up a set of policies, and your staff can approve certain banners if you want them to be over the street. Or you can go the other way, and you can basically direct your staff to modify this ordinance so that you just don't want banners over the streets. So you essentially have three options. You can leave it as it is, or decide at some point to make some change to that. As far as the option, we are actually waiting on one more price, but our intention is to replace the green fence posts up front that are holding the quilt sign tonight up there with two of the black, nice-looking aluminum posts that we have on Main Street that have the no parking signs, and equip them to hold that banner up there so we don't have those posts driven in there. The other option, as an alternative, that you, if a board would so desire, you can direct us to develop a set of policies and procedures wherefore other agencies or other groups that meet whatever guidelines or rules we want to set for them could come to either preferably the staff, or you want to approve every one of them, come to the staff and get permission and actually put a banner in that particular space up front of the town hall. So that is an option that we're pursuing, the option for us to make our banner look better up there. And you certainly can open that up to other groups within certain guidelines if you would like for us to develop policy.
But please bear in mind that from a legal standpoint, you're gonna have to be very conscious. I dislike any policy that has this board or really any town staff open to the accusation of having chosen this message over that one.
Oh, yeah.
That's your,
If we-
begging for trouble.
I think if we can have banners across the street, nobody can have banners. Not just one group, but they just need, it's gonna have to be
Yes or no?
across the street. I would say, pardon?
It's either yes
Or no, I don't think, and then they can have these other options. I think even I think that's a good idea in the town hall yard out there.
Could be very visible.
Yes, and even before we sell the town hall, old town hall, right there, a banner.
I think really, this evening, what probably needs to happen, and I hesitate because Bob, I'm squarely with you on this. I do like the ability to have signs across from building to building. I really think it adds a real flavor to the town that's necessary. I'm not sure we've got the vote to carry it over.
I think right now, we're seeing a revitalization of Franklin we have not seen in 30 years. Would anybody want to argue with that? You would? You don't see a revitalization coming? I think we're going to get a lot like Ashland. I think we're going to see a much younger crowd downtown. I think we're going to see a lot more events at night. I just see a whole new change in Franklin. And I may be completely off base, but we've got a lot of young people with fresh ideas that are really shaking up things.
But I believe you asked for this to be on the agenda, right?
The banners?
Yeah. Okay, and we're here. Anybody besides me and Bob speaking up, we're allowing in some form or fashion them to be continued, basically the location that we've seen, maybe tweaking or whatever on that.
But I don't see where a banner across Main Street for an event is going to make or break a little organization.
Never said it would make a break, it's just all one of the things.
We all know that there is a matter of safety involved in it, especially being attached to private buildings.
Is the issue of safety that it may come down or that people may look up and get distracted?
Well, both. They may look up. But I'll tell you, my point is, when you're coming up the town hill, if you look up, you look into especially in the afternoon, you look up into the sunlight anyway, and to me, I'd be blinded to the sign being there in the first place.
is dangerous if you come across down there if that sun's just right, if something's blocking it, then all of a sudden it's right on you, you cannot see what's going on.
Wouldn't you want sign to block the sun?
It's only a temporary block.
We've historically had signs, banners across Main Street. I can tell you one exactly, 1971, that was for Operation Heartbeat.
And there was
Did it
power
stay up
lines
for long?
across the street too, and
There were power lines.
put in lots of money, put these nice poles up that we could put individual banners on and not have
Would it-
the power lines.
So then is your issue just being above it, or, because if you're concerned about still looking up, that same concern with me. And have it both ways on this. If the issue is not having it signed because of its line of vision, it doesn't matter whether it's building to building or whether it's pole to pole.
We don't,
No, I'm not talking about having poles.
But that's what they did apparently back in the seventies.
I don't know, yeah, they went across the street.
Right.
Like you said.
Right.
But there's also power lines that went back.
We have for the Jamboree, we have for Operation
that's the one
Heartbeat.
that's, they're talking about the town hall.
Well, anyway,
It's bad.
this board is entitled to vote as this board sees fit. And we certainly need to go ahead and get all the records to be consistent with these
We need-
folks coming.
Yeah, we need to do.
Yeah, and I don't doubt that. I really, really, I think that we should allow them, but we're here discussing it, and if there's a motion, I'll entertain a motion.
Well, I'll make a motion. I'm not really quite sure what I'm going to say, but if we rethink the hanging of banners from private property, as long as there's no problem with the property owners, and the banners meet the safety requirements of having the air vents and the mesh and all that, then we allow the banners.
Well, we've asked staff to do a little research and do a little look, if they've not finished, let's at least give them an
I've got no problem with that.
what we asked you to do in the first place. Let's not spin our wheels talking about it again before.
What are we waiting on for the staff
I
now?
thought they.
About the banners
What y'all
across the
have to
street?
do.
We have to,
But alternatives is a different issue than whether or not we're gonna allow them string it from building to building.
Well, we can vote on that, and then, but they need their alternative.
It's never been, apparently it's never been put on the record. Right. I mean, is that right, Warren? Is that where we're at?
It's never on
We
the
need to
record.
change we need to change the
Yeah.
ordinance instead of
Coming to.
coming to the board for every issue with a banner, we just need to change the ordinance not to allow banners that cross.
That's not what you need to do, that's kind of what you're gonna do.
No, well, I mean, if you want to change something, that's what has to be done, because now the ordinance says that it comes before the town.
Right, I agree with that.
Well, then the simplest thing we can do is just strike it from our ordinance.
Mr. Cruz, did you want that one?
Well, we've got a motion on the floor.
No, you-
Did I not make a motion?
I'm not sure what it was.
Make a motion to thank him. I don't think you make a motion to thank him.
Darrell, is there a motion?
Yeah, I'll make a motion that we just delete the use of banners across the street from our ordinance.
Would that be just over Main Street or any street?
That's over crossing any street.
There's a motion.
I second it.
And before you go any further, let me get clear. Your motion is to pass an ordinance amending your ordinance. You understand?
No.
If you're gonna act to amend your ordinance, that's an ordinance. So we'll make sure everybody understands, because.
So how should we, what's
Because
the
what this
purpose?
is gonna look like is an amendment to an ordinance, and that's, okay, that's what everybody's gotta understand.
And so what
So
procedure?
what's wrong with that?
Just that it's to pass an
We'll
ordinance.
take a public hearing.
Amending the ordinance, no, police powers. Yes.
So this ordinance.
Well, it falls between that and because it's a public, it's for the reason of public safety, and also you have general control over the streets. You do not need a public hearing to
So is that verbiage right, what he has said to, or can we just say no banners across the streets like that?
Well, we have an ordinance that does allow them, so we're gonna have to change the list.
95.08 reads, it shall be unlawful to place, construct, or install a banner or sign over a street or roadway in the town, beside the street or roadway in a manner placed approved by the board.
So you just delete what you said.
Yeah, that's right. But I make a motion that we amend the ordinance to delete that exception.
And I second.
There's a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, raise your hands. Opposed?
That seems to be going on.
Sorry, Bob, I didn't, yeah,
I know.
sorry, Bob.
I know.
Too much of a
I
good
guess
thing.
I'm gonna take a guess here. We'll just
Yard
move-
sales.
move on, but let's look at, number 5C right quick.
Okay.
Y'all, we'll take 5 minute break, we'll move on. 5C, Western North Carolina Hospice House, raise your hand if you're here for the hospice house issue. I knew we had a few over here.
Mr. Mayor, I do think I can dispose of that pretty quickly for the board. Derek Roll and I have done quite a bit of research on the applicability of Chapter 168, persons with disabilities of the general statutes, to family care homes. We believe it to essentially, a family care home is any residential use of less than 6, designed for less than 6 persons with disabilities, to house them in a residential setting. What 168-22 does is essentially take the question out of your hands completely and require the town to treat any such use as residential. You don't get to put them through a special use anything. So the process that we were in before that would have required that hospice house to go through a special use hearing, I think is off the table for you. And so really this becomes an update unless you have any questions for me. I do not believe you can legally take any action but treat it as a residential use already. It's already in zoning compliance. May I have any questions?
Sounds good to me.
That was pretty.
That was quick enough.
Michelle's in shock.
All right.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. I'm gonna pause for 30 seconds, if anyone has to go out and check something in their car and not come back, we won't be apologizing. I mean, you're not all here for community service requirements or anything, right?
Thank you, folks.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Just in case I have questions.
Discharge of firearms ordinance, John.
Mr. Mayor, and this one is attached to the agendas and ordinance that would do essentially what you discussed last time, repealing a portion of your discharging firearms ordinance that, well, it adds a new provision that would allow discharge of firearms within the town within indoor gun ranges that are properly permitted according to local regulation, state and federal law. I also have, and I asked Eric to prepare this map. You have a map with you that I want to make sure everybody's clear on what the effect of repealing this ordinance would be. Coupled with the fact that Derek has, and I think it's the most reasonable interpretation of the term, he's given the term indoor recreation facilities the interpretation that it would include an indoor gun range. I think that makes the most sense. Because there is no special zoning treatment for indoor gun ranges, if you repeal the portion of your ordinance that in chapter 130.04, which is not a zoning regulation, it will become possible in all of the green shaded areas. Just so you're clear, we've talked an awful lot about it affecting one particular property where there may be a plan to have an indoor gun range. It would be possible to have one in any of those places that are shaded in green.
It's hard.
Here you go, photograph.
Because all of those are zoned what?
Attached in green. They're helping me out, they see 2 and I-1 or C3.
He stepped outside.
He does that.
Check the car.
Yeah.
He kept it this time.
I think it is it's essentially C2 or higher. It's like you step up and you.
Don't go away, we were looking.
Remind me, what's the which zones are the indoor recreational facilities?
Indoor recreational facilities are permitted in the C2 district. That'll be the darker shaded pink on your map there. And what happens as our zoning ordinance is progressive zoning, if it's permitted in C2, the uses listed above that, which are C3 and I1, highway, commercial, and industrial, permitting that by right in the C2 district, not only would allow it in the C2 district, but in the C3 district and the industrial district as well. And as best as I could do today, I've highlighted in green there all the areas in our zoning, and I do apologize for the scale, but that's the biggest paper we're able to print on. But it kind of tells you and gives you an idea of where these uses could be located, and that's out the Old Murphy Road corridor, down 441 South, the corridor down on the Silver Road there, and basically Highlands Road and Depot Street.
Well, what about Olco, where he wants to put it?
Yes, that's the whole C2.
Where's Olco on this?
Well, for purposes, and like I said, this is a pretty small scale, but Olco is a C2 district.
Well, show me where it's on the map.
Is it that little blip?
It would be covered by the green outline in this case. But there again, to get this all in the map, I mean, for the purpose that this map's trying to illustrate is that when you permit it in C2, you're allowing it not only in C2, but in a lot of other places in the town. And these, it's quite a large area.
So we're saying,
I just want to make sure that you understand if you make the change to the ordinance about discharge of firearms, which is again a police power ordinance, is not zoning. You haven't done anything with zoning as far as gun ranges go. They'll be permissible in all of these zones.
so we can't just do an exception for just this
Right.
one without.
That's what I'm trying to clear up is it is not just that one property on Olco. We're not talking about.
But we could then, if somebody else approached us, could be feasible to say,
They wouldn't have to ask.
You have, no, right, exactly, they would automatically.
how many people would come up with gun ranges?
They're not something that shows up on every corner, I can
They're
tell you
pretty
that.
expensive amount of money, I think, on putting in there.
We couldn't, do a special use.
You could, but we haven't done that sort of, and if you want to explore it would take an amendment to the UDO that required gun ranges to go through a special use process for one thing. And then they have to start down the path of, so we can do that, but it's gonna take several months.
We don't have to take any action on this tonight.
Doesn't he waiting for he's waiting to be able to go.
I don't know, but I don't think we have any pressing need to make a decision tonight. I think we can let it roll over for a while. Doesn't appear to be any plans that would require a decision between now and month or two.
This is the first time we've looked at the
Yeah.
map and know that it's gonna affect a lot more than just an industrial site area. I figured it was gonna.
And Derek can't even show me where Olco is.
I'm not sure we know where this street is.
This is a map of all the.
This is a corridor out there on the bypass.
I mean, my house next door.
These are all.
All right, we're breaking down here. Getting close to the end. We have such long meetings. We don't have our stamina like the big boys we can't last. Right. All right.
A motion to table would be the most appropriate way to.
Okay, so motion to table it for now. Take a motion to table it for now.
Motion to table the discharge of firearms ordinance.
Second.
All in favor, raise your hand. Solicitor ordinance. That Buck Buchanan, who we talking
They were
to?
supposed to say solicitations ordinance.
Oh.
That one did not make it onto the electronic version of the agenda, so I apologize for that. It's printed out in front of you, so it says draft. everybody got it in front of them.
Yes.
If you want to take the option, this is another time I need to be very clear with you what your options are. You do not have to adopt an ordinance that will allow solicitors into the street asking for donations. Your ordinance already says that no person shall stand in any roadway for the purpose of soliciting right or business. It does not specifically deal with solicitors. So you don't have to do anything. I would recommend that you take some action though, and either, it's sort of like the banner issue, and this also is not something you have any obligation to deal with tonight, but, so you may want to just take it under advisement, but I think that you either need to say, no person shall be in any roadways asking for donations within the town. Or if you are going to allow it, it's going to have to look, and this is a matter of state law, it will have to look like this ordinance does in front of you. It's going to set up a system of permitting, and it will require, and it's kind of interesting, this kind of calls back to what we were talking about in terms of insurance liability. The $2 million policy requirement that's a matter of state law, and that in front of you there is what is written into the statute. They shall, give us proof of $2 million in insurance.
But we really need to, I don't know how many times somebody's approached me about some of the solicitations going on in places.
How about you got one, how are you gonna do the other? I mean, you're gonna do your
I know.
corner, and then you're
Well,
gonna cut out
I don't.
Lions Club, Mason, Veterans, Hobby Day. Sometimes they create more than
I think I understand what you're saying. There needs to be done.
Has everybody,
What's going on?
has anybody ever come down to that particular area and said, where are you?
See, you're in pretty.
Adams, they're supposedly from a church out of Kentucky.
Does that matter?
No, they tell us where they're from.
They told us for.
Huh?
They told us for.
Yeah, okay.
They're where?
They're either from Florida or Kentucky. They told two stories.
Depends on who you ask.
I have a question. John, of course, number one, people don't have to give. And this is the criteria a lot of towns will say, well, you don't have to give if you don't approve of it. Secondly, can we in here require certain types of safety vests? Some of the safety vests that some of these groups use are so faded and ripped and torn. And I'm just wondering about, can we require any type of
Probably.
They're wearing vests.
Yeah, but did you see the quality of some of
Yeah,
these?
some of them pretty shoddy.
You can require, since it's on the street, you can actually require the new DOT standard. There is a DOT standard that has.
Right.
And I think that's why, because it's a safety issue, I think,
I
yes.
guess a public notice in the paper saying, if you don't know where the money is going, don't give. That might be a no-no.
We're sort of getting the First Amendment there.
I wouldn't touch that.
They do have rights.
I was making sure I heard you.
Sometimes they create.
Let's take this for what it's worth and table it, sir.
Yeah, I make a motion that we table this issue for another time.
Motion second, all in favor, raise your hand. Proposed UDO ordinance concerning internet gaming devices.
Mr. Mayor, this item is probably another one that may be just for your information and discussion tonight. And I'm sorry that I haven't had anything in front of you before now about this. I'm sure that if you've been following news in the state and locally about regulation and control of internet gaming devices, it's, I couldn't begin to tell you what the law is on it right now. It's all over the place.
Why don't you bring it up?
Well, one of the few things we can, here's why, one of the few things we can do is we have done no zoning sort of regulation of that sort of business. I think it's high time that we did. As it stands right now, there is probably nothing standing between our current regulations and a sweepstakes place, 50 machines on Main Street. I think that is one of the, our ability to tax them is kind of up in the air at the moment for the bill. There's actually a decent bill that if it passed would be okay before the General Assembly right now, that the state is going to start to tax those sorts of games, but leave some room for local taxation and regulation of them, but at least define it for us and tell us what we can or can't do. That seems to be on the way. I think zoning is going to be there.
Give us either your recommendation or at least our options.
Or if the board is interested in amending the UDO, which is what you need to do, to give some sort of zoning treatment to sweepstakes type machines, internet gaming machines, the process can start from Derek has drafted for us a zoning amendment, a text amendment for the UDO. Your first step would be to recommend it down to the planning board for a recommendation, and we'd bring back to you. That actually won't happen until July. The July meeting, you set a hearing for August. The fastest we can do.
So in other words, the prohibition that we had won't fit the internet gaming devices? Is this a different animal?
The state ban?
Well, the ban we had for inside the town for those sweepstakes.
We didn't have a ban, all we did was we had a fee.
That's right.
Yeah, that's all we do is charge
You
them.
can't ban it, but the state allowed it, then didn't allow it, now they allowed it, they didn't allow it. Now they've already beat the didn't allow.
And
So
those-
we made the cases of course.
Those fee structures will change if this last bill passes. There will be a similar type, I think they call it an excise tax, that you would charge so much per location, so much per machine, and the dollar figures are different from what we have now. They're considerable, but they are different. One of the issues we've had come up, and we've talked to our staff, is as far as now, is a privilege license for those, because now there are some of them that apparently are illegal or are considered by the court system to apparently illegal. And one of the things we've instructed our staff is that to still issue those privilege licenses, because we are not the authority to tell people whether they're legal or not. If they come to us and tell us they're of the legal type, then we're required to issue them a privilege license, just like any other person. We're not, we are allowed to issue them a privilege license, just like any other person.
I have a question. Who regulates sweepstakes gambling in Lincoln County, in the town of Franklin? Is it regulated by, if it's inside the city limits, by the police department?
That's what we've been doing.
Or the sheriff has full authority throughout the county?
No, if it's in the town, we can enforce it if it's in the county. But I think the last one was in the town, but the sheriff's department went and issued a citation.
That's the one they lost.
Yes, in district court.
And what that was, and it has already happened, is the definition, trying to define it, it's like nailing jelly to the wall. You can't define, what it is, because they'll find some slight tweak to it and what it be done, so.
We haven't heard the last stuff.
No.
It's going to be backed up.
So this, I'm still not sure, certain what our options
My
are.
recommendation to you is, and this is what I would ask you to consider sending down to the planning board for recommendation to be brought back at the July meeting, would be to restrict internet gaming, and we'll have to work with the definition of that somewhat, to C3 or industrial zone properties. Now, I don't know if you want to be that restricted. I just have a strong inclination that the town board doesn't want to see a sweepstakes machine business on your main street.
I think someone needs to look at it. Of course, we need to be working on it now, because like I said, it may be back, we're already seeing it back, and there's some other more overturned back decisions.
Well, we need to be prepared, so it does.
This wouldn't prevent us, wouldn't preclude us from getting what taxes or fees we could for the ones we allow in C3.
And I don't believe they're correct, and we could still, as long as it's legal under state law, collect them. Yeah, the privilege license is taxed.
But the amounts may be set by the state in the future, based on that bill that they have.
But you're thinking maybe the planning board ought to look and see whether they would jump on to recommend whether we restrict it to C3?
Yes, C3 and industrial. Get out your handy dandy map again.
Yeah.
We want to think about this for a month, and go ahead and make a motion to send to the planning board.
Well, since the planning board doesn't have any binding authority on us, I was we'll have to go ahead and get it to them.
Maybe start on something.
I move to send this application to the planning board.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor, raise your hand. Update on Angel Metal Center lease. This is the 60 square, down there.
This is extremely simple, it's just, yeah, it's that portion that the town has agreed to lease to Angel Medical. I just wanted to let you know that the lease, there were some very slight technical changes that they wanted to see done. And I have it back to you for your signature. It's basically, I just want to let you know that the lease is starting.
Is the board comfortable enough with it, or comfortable enough with John to sign it?
I am.
Yes, sir, that's the best we could do.
Motion for the mayor to sign.
I make a motion that the mayor signs whatever it's called.
That means.
The lease. The lease of the property. The lease, thank you.
Motion, is there a second? Discussion? All in favor, raise your hand. Pass it down. Janet, need to put the seal of, Franklin on it?
Please just sign it, please. I guess so. Would it hurt?
Any further business?
Mr. Mayor, can I make one announcement? I want to remind the board that this Saturday, you have area of the quilts downtown, and you have the first picking on the square, which is actually not on the square, but down here in the parking lot this Saturday.
Does Aaron have insurance?
We're down Franklin and the merchants are planning on staying open Saturday night, so there's going to be a lot going on down this Saturday.
And also the law enforcement on Friday.
The law enforcement,
Memorial.
It's at 12 o'clock.
I've got a boy graduating from college, which will preclude my
Yay.
one of all this week. Stay. Anything else? Motion adjourned.